Hello everybody, my name is Phil and welcome back to some Deadlock. Today we're going to be talking about Seven and his balls. Yeah, that's the title of the video, that's the joke. His lightning balls, if you will. About a third to half of this build is devoted to making sure that you can use those effectively and strongly because they're just so good. They help you farm, they help team fights a lot, and they can trigger lots of different stuff. But because this is a generalized overview build, I'm going to talk through Seven as a character first. I'm going to talk through the build that I like to play with him at the moment, which is this one right here, which, if I know what I'm doing, should be available in the build browser by the time this video goes up, so that should be linked in the description properly, as long as I figured it all out. Without much ado, let's just talk about Seven as a character. Seven as a character is typically a hybrid gun spirit carry in the current meta, in my experience, but can also be played as a true spirit carry. We're going to start by just talking about their gun. Their gun is pretty solid. It's a burst fire medium range weapon that starts with 29 ammo. It has pretty fast bullets, so it's kind of hard to miss if you're not the best at dealing with bullet having low velocity. And it has pretty okay damage overall. It's pretty quick to fire. It's pretty consistent. Doesn't have a ton of recoil, although most weapons in the game don't. But overall, it's really good. You got some pretty basic melee stuff, and melee's not really a thing you do with him. He doesn't have anything too special about his vitality stats, other than he does get crit reduction, and that's because he has a big-ass sombrero on his head, and it makes it really easy to get headshots on him. He's also fairly basic with spirit stuff, but as you can see, a lot of his abilities all scale off of spirit. His kit is fairly basic and straightforward, but that doesn't mean he's a boring character. Just because his abilities are generally straightforward in what they do doesn't mean that the character is bad or anything like that. Let's start by talking about the first ability, Lightning Ball. It's a giant ball that you shoot in a straight line and does damage to all targets in its radius. You can get it caught on floors and on objects to purposefully slow it down as well. Works really well when farming camps. You'll just throw it on the ground in between all the minions, and then throughout the lifetime of the ability, it'll just sit there constantly doing damage over time. It procs almost every ability that you could possibly want from items as well, other than specifically gun ones, so it's really great at doing that, and that's one of the reasons why I like it so much for building him, because it's a giant AoE spirit damage thing that'll proc all my items, like all of my lifesteal items. Like, it'll proc suppressor, it'll proc escalating exposure, it'll proc spirit burn. Seven's second ability is one of the more powerful and iconic abilities of the kit. It is their stun. They throw it on an enemy. After a short delay, it will stun them for a certain length of time. Obviously, upgrading it makes it better, gives it bigger radius, and gives it better stun duration, but typically is the last thing that you'll level up. When you're leveling up your abilities on Seven, you typically just want to get that massive chunk of cooldown, and then you just kind of ignore it until the end of the game, because your other skills typically have better upgrades. It's one of his most powerful things that he has in his kit to make him a really great 1v1 solo the enemy carry type carry. However, I will say that it is very easily cleansable, and debuff reducer type effects will make that stun duration go down a lot, so be very careful about which people on the enemy team have Dispel Magic, I suppose is the item name now, or Divine Barrier. Power Surge, the bread and butter of Seven, one of his best abilities, one of the reasons he is in fact so absurdly strong into the late game and can fight people. You power up your gun, it does spirit damage when it shoots people, it'll jump from enemy to enemy, it has 6 max jumps, it applies spirit resist after you get it leveled up, and it also gets extra damage, extra spirit scaling, and extra jumps as you level it up, making it just an incredibly powerful ability. It's great for farming in the jungle because you can just sit there shooting one camp and it'll hurt all 3 enemies in the vicinity. It's really great for team fights when everyone's grouped up. You just pop it, start firing into the enemy team, you're shredding spirit resistances, and you're just hurting everyone all at the same time. There's a reason why this is typically the first ability maxed in most Seven builds. It's just really good with lots of value tied to it. It also reduces the enemy's spirit resist for your balls. Came back around on that one. Seven's ultimates are all another really good part of their kit. It's one of the reasons why they always remain relevant into the late game. A giant AoE. If you stand inside of this, you take base 183 damage per second of spirit damage that procs items. It's pretty strong. You also can get bullet resist while channeling it, extra channel time and extra radius, and extra DPS and movement control. That last part doesn't matter as much unless you're going for a full, I want to make my ult the most important part of my kit style of build, but it can be nice late game to make sure that you're chasing the enemy team through the team fight without having to drop out of your ultimate. It does, like all the rest of his kit, trigger all the great spirit items, most importantly Lightning Scroll, but we'll come to that later. It also has an activated ability inside of the channel where you left click on the circle targeter that's on the ground, and it'll knock enemies away and make them take extra damage. Pretty great ability overall. It's one of the reasons why I personally like him so much, is that even if I'm struggling to have a good game where I'm hitting all my other stuff. 9 times out of 10, if I just jump as high as I can in the air, pop ult, it'll hit everybody in a team fight, I'll get a bunch of assists, a bunch of money, and just move on from there. So let's talk about the build. As you can see, this build is relatively cheap for the most part. 30k to get all of the items that you possibly need for the build with only 3 of your major upgrades locked away. Obviously, this is implying you have access to all your slots, but still, 30k to finish basically most of the build and only have upgrades left to go means that you are pretty much set up with your build throughout the late game. And since all you have to do is get upgrades, buying upgrades will typically make the build just better as you go on. So let's talk about this hit those spikes section. Let's talk about the 4.8k spikes that you get in this build and why I choose these items. Intensifying magazine is just really good right now. You hold M1 and you profit. Scaling all the way up to 45% extra weapon damage, give me 20% extra max ammo. It only takes 2.5 seconds, and because of how 7's weapon's a burst fire weapon, it's both really good and really bad at the same time. It scales up pretty quick though, so it makes the weapon just better. It's also extra mag size to help you farm better. Ballistic enchantment, you throw it on the 1, and then the 1 will start making you do extra gun damage. It also makes it larger, which is great. You throw this at a wave, you'll get massive amounts of gun damage, and then you just shoot the enemy team in the head a bunch, and they'll just be taking a lot more damage than they're expecting. This is personally what I like to go for as my first 2 items at the moment, if I'm not dying in lane, if I'm able to like press an advantage and like really fight it out early. These are the items that I grab because gun early is just really strong. If you're just trying to make sure that you don't die to the gun carry, though, you may want to skip to the purple section first, because if they have a gun carry, suppressor slowing their fire rate by 28% for 4 seconds, which is really easy to proc between your ball and your third ability power surge, it's really nice to fight them. Speaking of power surge, surge of power. You put this on power surge. I know, that's a lot of words that say power and surge all at the same time. It's fine, don't worry about it. I wouldn't really try and go to take down the enemy team's guardian or to start hyper farming in the jungle until you have finished surge of power. It is just such a good upgrade for 7. Extra imbued ability spirit power means you just get 24 extra spirit power on your third ability, making it go from typically about 37 shock damage to 55. I am at max level at the moment, so things are a little wonky. I have a little extra spirit power, but if you've bought suppressor, it'll probably be pretty similar numbers. That's a pretty big jump considering all you're doing is buying 1 item. It also does have an item that you can buy first into it, meaning that if you just want a little extra boost of spirit power early, you can just buy extra spirit. It turns into surge of power right afterwards. It's really nice. The green items can be messed with a little bit. I personally really like Healbane, Spirit Lifesteal, and Enduring Speed. The order varies. If I'm able to take down the enemy's guardian early, I'll grab Enduring Speed so I can run around and farm boxes better. If I'm staying in lane and fighting a bunch, I'll grab Spirit Lifesteal, and if there's any healing on the enemy team at all, I buy Healbane first item. Healbane's just so good on 7. All of your abilities trigger it really easily and really well, and it's just great. The lane item section over here, don't be afraid to buy items for the lane and then just hold on to them until you're slot locked. Don't feel like you have to sell these items early. Just hold on to them until you need to sell them to free up a slot for your better item later. For example, Restorative Shot just helps you do everything better. It's a little bit of gun damage, but it's also just healing when you shoot stuff. Same with monster rounds. It'll help you farm jungle better. It also means you have bullet resist versus all of the NPCs and just a tiny bit of out of combat regen. It's just nice. Emotional support healing right is always in here. Extra regen's typically a good item to buy as well. Giving you 5 extra regen when you're out of combat is just pretty nice. Spirit Treader bullets are also pretty good if your team is very purple. You can go ahead and buy them first over Intensifying Magazine. That's a bit of a judgment call, though. Enchanter's Emblem, Battle Vest, and Reactive Barrier are all in here to replace Spirit Lifesteal early in case you're just trying to not die in lane. Because dying in lane is much worse than having to buy an item that you have to sell later. I'm going to go a little faster through the rest of the build because a lot of the rest of the build is fairly self-explanatory. Superior Duration is a really good item. It makes it so that your ball itself lasts longer, and so your power surge goes up to like 22 seconds base, meaning that you're only ever without it for like 10 seconds at a time. And then when you grab Improved Spirit afterwards, you hit the big 9.6k investment spike, giving you a total of 64 extra spirit. Going into Leech after that means that you hit that same investment in Vitality, taking you from 525 extra health to 750 extra health, making you tankier. Plus it gives you a giant pile of stats between the Spirit Lifesteal and the Bullet Lifesteal and bonus health, bonus weapon damage, the bonus spirit power. It's the best green item that's offensive that you would want to buy on 7. It's really good for him, especially if you are sticking with the holding mouse 1 surge of power, power surge type build. You can get Infuser, we'll talk about that later. These items are optional for a reason. This is the base build still. Rapid Recharge is something that you'll only typically want to buy after you get your Lightning Ball maxed out, because until you get that extra DPS and extra radius, it's just not as good of an investment to spend 3,200 souls on. You'd probably rather be buying Mystic Vulnerability over it early, because who would have thought 8% Spirit Resist that will stack with your extra 10% Spirit Resist makes people die a lot faster. Weakening Headshot's just good if you want to make sure that you're still doing your bullet damage. The upgrade into Crippling Headshot's really good as well. As you can tell, 30k, basically filled all our slots, now we just have upgrades left, but they're all really good upgrades. Escalating Exposure is probably your biggest power spike on 7. You proc it so fast and so easily because it can proc every 0.7 seconds, meaning that, for example, I'm going to hop out of my menus here, I'm going to have it bought, I'm going to run over here to this guy, I'm going to throw a ball at it, and you're going to watch how fast the stacks start rolling up. If I just hit the ball in it, they get to sit in it for its full duration. You get 9 out of your, I believe, 12 stacks by just throwing a single ball at someone and hitting them for full duration. It's crazy. Yeah, see, Simon's excited about it too. It's a massive power spike. It does also give you Spirit Resist, which is an underrated part of it. So if you're both looking for extra damage and you're going, man, the enemy team is pretty spirit heavy, you may just want to rush into Escalating Exposure before buying Weakening Headshot or even Rapid Recharge. It's really, really that good and that worth it. Battle Spirit, just big spirit power spike, gives you extra 15% spirit power on top. As you can see, it puts us up to 216 spirit power at this point in the build. That's a lot. That makes Power Surge do 122 shock damage, 247 per second on Lightning Ball, 289 per second on Storm Cloud. Like, it's a really big damage up. Crippling Headshot is one of 7's better gun items because it just shreds bullet resist and spirit resist at the same time, meaning that you get to hold left click with Power Surge better. It also has healing reduction on it accidentally, which is really nice. It means that 7 is now an anti-heal machine with Heal Bane and that. And then, as you can see though, the full build is basically 45k. If you don't buy any other items and you just go straight through the build in whatever order you need to, and you get every item, as long as you have every slot unlocked, your build is done, quote unquote, at 45k, with lots of very powerful items that help you really run your way through endgame team fights. Now, this is the whole section of the video where I'm going to talk about all the optional items that are listed on this build. Toxic Bullets, for example, if you're running against a team that has just a massive amount of healing and you're going, oh my god, it's hard to keep up, just buy it. As much as it pains me, you could skip Ballistic Enchantment for it as well if you'd rather try and keep your curve low, i.e. not spend an extra 1600 by not buying Intensifying and just going straight into Toxic Bullets, but it's just so good. Such a good item. It scales with your spirit damage. It's just overall really good. It adds to that healing reduction stuff. And then in the late game, you'll get what? 30% spirit reduction, healing reduction off of that. Sorry, not spirit. 35% off Heal Bane. And if you hit a headshot, it's another 35% on top of that. I don't believe it's additive in this game. I think it's kind of multiplicative reductions, but that's still a lot of healing reduced off the enemy team. If as the game goes on, you're finding yourself to be more of an ult bot instead of a left click bot, i.e. you're throwing your lightning balls and you're throwing out Lightning Storm off cooldown pretty regularly, and you're not actually getting into gunfights as much because of how the game is working, you may want to grab Infuser over Leech. Personally, I think that 9 times out of 10, Leech is the right item to buy a 7. You don't even really have to think about it because it just gives everything he wants, as well as this massive spike of green into his build. But Infuser is in fact quite good, and it can work, and it does work, especially if you're going for more of an, I want all the spirit power and all of the spirit lifesteal that I could possibly want. So you hit the 45k mark on your build. You're like, all right, well, I still need to do more damage though, because the enemy team is still scaling. I mean, you can still scale too. You just have to sell items. Or you could buy Juggernaut. Juggernaut's just a really good upgrade. It's just not part of the base build because it's kind of expensive and more often than not isn't worth a buy over other stuff as you're ramping up to do more damage. However, as games go on longer and you need to not die, you can grab it. You could grab it earlier if you're having troubles against slows like Celeste, for example. Celeste will often run lots of slows and slow people down a lot. 50% slow resist is better than 25%. All you get is 25% slow resist from Enduring Speed. That 50% can really add up and let you get out of fights faster. I will say, this will also now include items you can sell to counter build. That's something that I saw in my recent video about counter building, which is on the channel somewhere. You can go find it yourself if you haven't watched it yet. You probably have, though. The items to sell for the counter building part of this build are pretty straightforward. It's typically intensifying magazine and suppressor. If you're not dropping below a massive investment marker, like you're not dropping below the 4.8k mark, intensifying magazine and suppressor are pretty sellable in order to buy items to counter build with. Selling suppressor for dispel magic because the Infernus is murdering you off cooldown because you can't get rid of all the debuffs is very worth it. Counterspell to hit the lash is much better than slowing the fire rate of them. Bullet resistance to help you fight against a team that's a Silver, a Haze, and a Venator be really nice. Same way Spirit Resistance helps against Bebop, Lash, and whoever else is in there. Suppressor and Intensifying Magazine are usually the first to go. We have lots of counter building options in here. Just kind of do as you wish. I will make an honorable mention and special mention of Unstoppable. Don't buy it unless you're going ult build. Or you just need to make sure that your ult goes off and gets full damage value for your team. If you're not trying to make sure that you get your ult off properly, Unstoppable is not as good on 7 because you don't want to be close enough to be getting stunned and fought and let's list them off. Stunned, silenced, slept, rooted, or disarmed. By the way, as you can see though, Superior Duration does affect it, giving you 7 full seconds of you can't stun me. It's really nice. I will also say that you can sell Healbane as you get later. If you are using Crippling Headshot and making sure you're getting the healing reduction off of it, Healbane can be sold. Healbane can also be sold for Spirit Burn if you just want more damage, but you want to make sure that you're still anti-healing. I personally usually sell Suppressor for greater expansion as we get later into the game, making the balls enormous and the ult be massively wide, as well as giving 10% Spirit Resist is great. Lightning Scroll's in here because if your team needs more CC in order to fight better, because they keep cleansing your damn stun every 10 seconds with the spell magic, get Lightning Scroll. It makes your ult immediately stun the entire enemy team simultaneously if they get touched by it. Really, really powerful effect. There's the 3-second delay, and so they can cleanse it then, but if they're worried about cleansing your static charge, they're not going to be able to cleanse the Lightning Scroll as well. Transcendent cooldown also in here in case you're going the ult build, because if you're going the ult build, you're probably getting Unstoppable and Infuser instead of Leech. And so as a result, Transcendent cooldown's a lot better for that build because you're already going other active items and getting more value out of it. Spirit Rend, Hollow Point, Spiritual Overflow, and Mercurial Magnum are all in here in case you need to be the gun player on your team. Spirit Rend's also in here just in case you need, for some reason, even more Spirit Resist Shred. A lot of your build will work through a lot of Spirit Resist and just amp yourself up to where you probably don't need this item ever. But if your team is very, very purple, and I mean like you're the only character on the team who runs gun at all, you may want to run Spirit Rend. You do really need to hit your headshots to get the actual value out of this item. If you're not hitting headshots, all you're getting is 8% Spirit Resist Shred, which is not very much considering, well, Spirit Resist gives 30% by default, not even counting other items. So you need to be hitting your headshots to get it to the 15, the 22, the 30% Shred. But it is very, very good. It does do a lot. It does add to some Spirit Lifesteal for you and your team. But without hitting headshots, it's just not as good of an item. So just make sure that you know that if you're buying it. Hollow Point is just a great item if you need more gun. It doesn't currently work with Weakening and Crippling Headshot, I believe. The item's been bugged for quite a bit now. By the time this video comes out, this might have been fixed. But I know for quite a bit there, if you bought Hollow Point before other Shred items, the other Shred items just wouldn't apply. Like, you just wouldn't get the Shred from Weakening Headshot if you bought Hollow Point first. So, viewer discretion advised. Make sure that the item isn't bugged before buying it. I do realize that it's making you do homework, but you know what? Suck it up. Homework's great. Homework makes you go learn on your own. Learning's good. Anyways, next item is Spiritual Overflow. A really great item for if you're just kind of going gun build and you want to pop your 3 and just hold left click. Free Spirit Lifesteal, fire rate up, Spirit Power, and ability cooldown as you hit people. The duration gets really long if, once again, you're running Superior Duration like you should be. If you caught this is kind of like the keystone to this build, this item affects so much of what you're doing, it's great. Spiritual Overflow is very good for 7, though. As the game goes late, you could absolutely sell Intensifying Magazine for it if you want to make sure that you can have more left click so that you can shoot more shots powered up by Power Surge. Mercurial Magnum's in here too. I am not as much of a believer in this item. I've seen some 7s using it more and more and more to make sure that you just really burst people down. It does imbue up the ability with the bonus spirit damage, making sure that the ball does more damage as you throw it, and then it gives you a bunch of fire rate and bullet damage after you throw it, making it a pretty good item. I'm not a huge believer in it on 7. I've seen a lot of people be big fans of it, though, so once again, viewer discretion advised, use it if you want to. And yeah, the rest of this build, as you can see, is just survivability and counter building. If you were curious, dear viewer, how I usually alter my build as I get to the later stages of the game to make 7 even more powerful, it's typically something like this. I'll sell off Intensifying, Suppressor, and Healbane in favor of Spirit Burn, Greater Expansion, and Spiritual Overflow. I will also sometimes not get the Spiritual Overflow to make sure I get Lightning Scroll so that I can stun people inside of my ult. But this is all a lot of personal preference at the end of the day. This is just how I'll typically upgrade and alter my build. Obviously, this build is out here just so that you can know what you're doing, and I have hopefully annotated it pretty well so that even if you find this build without this video, you'll know what you're doing with it. Well, if you made it this far into the video, thanks for hanging out and watching. Y'all are cool and I appreciate you. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and all that stuff. Build ID should be down in the description below to help you find the build easier. If you want to watch me play 7 and other characters live, I do stream on Twitch pretty regularly, 7 p.m. Eastern. But thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video, and hope to catch you in the next one.